Till the formal clothing of the Roman citizen was the toga. During Roman elections, those running for political office would rub their toga with a dazzling white chalk to stand out. Called Toga Candida, pure white, this clothing was the origin of the word candidate. The piece of clothing that we usually imagine when we think of togas is not what the actual Roman toga looked like. The costume worn to parties is actually the Greek himation. The actual Roman toga was massive and very heavy to wear. It is almost like having a giant blanket wrapped around you. Due to the weight, senators would have to have the excess fabric draped over their arm, which is also the origin of the pose of a political leading being depicted with one hand in their jacket, like Napoleon's portrait. Toga. 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 I think a lot of politicians are still using a white powder. The word candida /a/, meaning shining white, from candere meaning to shine, also gave rise to the English word candid, originally meaning fair or free from malice. Amazing how much influence Rome has had on modern society. Wait. What was the informal clothing of that era? I totally thought everyone was just wearing togas. Also piggybacking on this topic of extreme wealth, senators, senatus, used to have purple trim around the edge of their togas. Back then, purple was the most expensive color of fabric available for purchase because it was made only from ground-up sea slugs/snails, which were rare and hard to come by in the Mediterranean. Here's another fun fact. Yeast infections and thrush that produce white discharge and coating in the mouth, Candida albicans. Didn't the laundries use urine instead of soap? Not white chalk dyed with sulfur, per the article uplinked. Meanwhile, the toga candida of political candidates was bleached using sulfur to make it much whiter than the usual cream version. Why isn't Latin taught as a complementary language? As an English speaker, hearing things like this is fascinating and curious. I freaking love etymology. And candida is the yeast that causes a yeast infection, candidiasis, because it's white. No need to thank me. You're welcome. I just figured it was quicker access for the politicians to screw the regular people over. Y'all, my world history teacher said that it was a common prank to run up to a politician or rich person and whack their toga and run away again in a cloud of chalky dust. LMAO. Julius Caesar also sewed fringes on his toga and wore his belt all loose showing skin. Dude used to peacock. Me, a nursing student, also understands that candida is class of fungi that result in infections. Ergo, all candidates are fungus. They were just as ridiculous as we are. Candida is also the term for a genital yeast infection. Deleted. Romans also used urine to whiten their clothes. The joy of all servants knowing these glistening white togas were the product of the fruits of their loins. Drink up and be merry, we have laundry to do. Remember, after 3 shakes you're just playing with yourself. Haha. Is this also the etymology behind Candida species? I love finding out weird etymologies. An oral candidiasis, the white stuff on a small percentage of y'all's tongues. Candida is also a yeast infection. Politicians and yeast infections are made of the same thing. Toga candida sounds like a type of yeast infection. Damn, so even the word candidate means white. Am I the only one who googled toga and got accosted by weebushit? Does this imply that candid is of relative root to pure? To be candid with someone is to be purely to the point, and if you google tongue candida, you will see that this tongue fungus is also white, and a yeast infection. A fungal infection is called candidiasis. Candida is also bleach in some Latin-based languages. Man, whenever I see the word candida I think of yeast infections. Ahahaha. What was the informal wear? Wait until they hear the word senator comed from the Latin word for old man. The toga was also so stupendously cumbersome and uncomfortable, the whole thing is a 20 feet long semicircle made from heavy woolen cloth, that there had to be a rule saying that togas were mandatory for male Roman citizens, and prostitutes, to enter the forum. The toga was heavy, unwieldy, excessively hot, easily stained, and hard to launder. It was best suited to stately processions, public debate and oratory, sitting in the theater or circus, and displaying oneself before one's peers and inferiors while ostentatiously doing nothing. I give you wedding dresses, also in white. Candida is also a yeast that commonly causes wonderful yeast infections. Always knew there was some similarity between political candidates and yeast infections. I love etymology. Asterisk Candida is also a family of yeast-like infections too. Candida albicans is also the scientific name for the yeast that often causes infections like thrush. No image of it, really. Also Candida is the species name of the organism that causes yeast infections, vaginal candidiasis, and thrush, white plagues on tongue. TIL, politicians are named after a fungus. Which is appropriate. Oh man, a real TIL. Almost all of these seem to be. Today I heard an anecdote. Thanks. Define irony. Edit. To the people that have acknowledged my time swimming in this swamp of scant delights, I thank you. And for the rest of you, awesome replies. I can continue not remembering that Alanis Morissette exists until I hear a reference again and get lost in a beautiful wormhole of her voice. Again. And I'll use the term irony less carelessly. Article says sulfur, not chalk. Where are you getting that? It specifically says the robes were bleached using sulfur. The word chalk doesn't even appear in this article. So what's the new origin? Cool. Still can't get Animal House out of my head. Toga. Toga LOL. Weird, considering Candida yeast is the only yeast that is beneficial and grows in the human body. It converts carbs into sugar. Toga yeast infections. Called Toga Candida, pure white, this clothing was the origin of the word candidate. Ironically, Candida is now known as a fungal infection that affect the throat, mouth, and vagina. R/etymology. What have the Romans ever done for us? Today I learned could be exclusively etymology. It's all fascinating and tells a story. Cato to Pompey, while fleeing Rome with thine tail betweenst, you've lost Rome, why you asshole, you've lost Rome. That is a President Bartlett fact. About as false as candidates nowadays. Shocking. Am I the only one who wants to see what they look like with the dazzling white chalk? Today you learned that, healthcare workers associate yeast and yeast infections with the word candida, therefore we all find it hilarious when we come across women named Candida hilarious. Which came first, the toga or the sherry? Didn't they also use piss to clean clothes, because of the ammonia? I think we should take a page from ancient Rome, and have our politicians rub themselves with feces before official functions. Then the people would know they were *toga excrementum. As someone who works in recruitment, I find this very cool. Rinse the blood off my toga. Great, now I have a pretty good idea where Candida comes from. Well, the etymology I mean, geez. What about Candida albicans? Was the origin of that also come from Toga Candida? That's hilarious. Candida infection looks like cottage cheese. Kill me now with that nonsense. My skin can barely breathe in cotton, can't imagine what wearing a freaking curtain over myself for hours would feel like. Also, slaves were banned from wearing togas. They got tunics that, depending on the size of the man, or woman, were very short. What you need is a Samoan lava. Funny how so many political candidates are the exact opposite of pure white when it comes to their intentions and motivations. We did the same to our canvas PT shoes in school. The chalk was called Blanco. Thanks for the information. English is my second language and I can't express enough how much I love this type of TIL posts. Great job, dude/d-dead. Oh Candida. Our home and native land. I think we should make modern politicians wear togas. Formal for male citizens, women wore stillas, only prostitutes wore togas. My source is high school Latin class, so don't quote me.